Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today we start this Yevamot stop Kuf Tes. Today we're going to begin on Kuf Ches Amud Beis, the very bottom line by the Mishnah. Megarshes Isha v'Achzira. So in a situation where a person gets divorced and then afterwards gets remarried, muteris liyavam. So the din is that in the event that this man died, so she is actually allowed to do yibum with the brother. Says Rashi, we don't say it goes after the first marriage, and the fact is she got divorced, even though she got remarried to him, but because the first marriage was removed, then yibum would not take place. As soon as the original divorce took place, then she would no longer be able to do yibum with the brother, even though she was married afterwards. Gerushas achiv. So since again at one point she was considered gerushas achiv, so maybe now, even though they got remarried and then he died, maybe no, there will not be. She won't be able to do yibum, since yibum goes back to the original marriage. So we're saying no, that muteris liyavam, she's allowed to go back to the yavam. As we continue to Kuf Tes Amud Aleph, the Rabbi Lezer Oiser. Rabbi Lezer says not, and that will explain, according to the Gemara, a few different explanations. V'chein hamigarish es yisayma. Let's say a person divorces a widow, a woman who is an orphan. Rashi says, referring to a katana, she's sua ima v'acheha. As we mentioned before, the midrabanan, either the mother or the brother can marry her off in the event that she doesn't have a father. And then the hechzira, so again, she got remarried to the same guy. Rashi says, bein bekatnusa, bein begedusa. Even if afterwards she remarried to him after she already is older, it doesn't make any difference. Says the Mishnah, muteris liyavam. Again, she's allowed to, in the event that her husband died, does yibum, as we mentioned before, because misa mapeles. It's all totally on the death. It was shas misa ha'is ishto. And since she was married to this guy at the time of his death, therefore she can marry his brother through yibum. Rabbi Lezer Oiser, again, he says no. Katana shehasiya avia. Now this is a third case in a different situation where the actual father is alive, which is a kedusha deraisis bitin asati shazeh, and therefore because of that, if she would be married by the father midraisim, this garsha ki yisayim b'chayav. Now she's considered to be, even though her father's alive, she's like yisayim b'chayav, which means that was a gerushin deraisa, and therefore if let's say he remarries her at this stage, which is specifically while she's still a katana. So there was a divorce midiraisa, but the new marriage has only been a rabbanon. That's not enough if the man dies to link her to the brother, and therefore divrei kol asur yavam. Says Rashi, imes bekatnusa befil rabbanon. If let's say the man dies while she's still a katana, even according to the rabbanon, the girushin gemurin, because it's a complete divorce. And therefore, since she was a katana, now that kedushin is only din derabanan, the kedusha katana enu klum, as Rashi says, it is not a deraisa. Since the father only has a right to marry her off the first time, midiraisa, and therefore the gerusha, the divorce is actually din deraisa. V'hi ein lav yad v'havilah ki gerusha ba'imedes. So it's like she's still considered like divorced. And obviously she's not going to be able to do yibum because she's halachically not considered to be married to this man. So Oimer Eifa, which is the name of a chacham, my time to Rabbi Lezer. Why does Rabbi Lezer say in these situations that she is not allowed to do yibum in the first two cases? Gemara says, Hoyel v'amda olav sha'achas bi'isura. Since there was a time, namely b'shas gerushin, even though she's remarried to this guy, but since she got divorced from him, so therefore it was this moment that she was usher to the brother because it's considered to be gerushas achiv. And therefore, for that reason, even though she got remarried, and once her husband dies, she could no longer do yibum with the brother. So in this, the Gemara says, Amali Rabbana le'efa, yihachi chalitza nami lotiboy. Well, chayra, based on that logic, she shouldn't have to do chalitza either. Maybe you're right. No, the question is, why do you have to do chalitza? If it's nothing, then you shouldn't have to do that either. So Gemara says, he says, the truth is, Rabbi Lezer lo yada my taima. Rabbi, Hainu Taima de Rebbe Lezer. I'll tell you, you don't know the reason? I'll explain to you the reason of Rebbe Lezer. The truth is, he's Mesafgele. He's unsure. There's a question. Misa mapeles inesuna rishonim apilim. What exactly is the connection? Is it the original marriage, or is it the fact that he died that will now make her able to do yibum? So if continuing, misa mapeles, if it's all totally at the time when he died, so how Rabbi can make yibum? So in that case, she is married to him at this moment because she got remarried to him, and therefore she should be able to do yibum. However, if you want to tell me that really it's Nesun HaRishonim, it's all totally on the first marriage, well, the first marriage, since she was divorced, at that moment it's considered Gerushas Achiv, and therefore we do not do yibum. But we don't want to do nothing, because what if it is totally on Misa Mapelas? If it's Misa Mapelas, then you would have to do Yibum. And therefore, Mesafek, we require at least Chalitza. That's answer number one. Really, he holds that it's Misa that's Mapelas. And therefore, because of that, L'chaira, he should hold that Yibum should take place, because she is married. So the question is, so why does he say not to do that? Or at least to do Chalitza? The reason is because everyone knows they got divorced. That's something which was basic public knowledge. However, let's say they got remarried the next day, and it just happened, and he died a moment after the marriage. Not everyone knows about the fact that they got remarried. Maybe that's not public knowledge. And therefore, because of that, people are not going to really get married. They're going to think, oh, you know what? Even a woman who's been divorced, and then her husband, her ex-husband dies. Oh, still the din is that you still do yibum, which of course is not true. You only do yibum while she's still married. However, if people don't realize that she got remarried, then people are going to start making that potential mistake. I'd rather for the Gemara, you think Pumfaket, the opposite. Chazara, when it comes to getting remarried, kivan diyasva tute, since they're living together, isli kola. Everyone's going to talk about it. So what do you mean no one's going to know? Milo askinan, so the Gemara answers, as we said, Tiahadri be'urta v'shacha b'safra. They got married at night, and maybe he died that next morning. And therefore, again, it may not have been such public knowledge, and therefore, because of that, we're concerned. Ravashi Amar Hanatam Rabbi Lezer, a third answer. The Gozer Hani, which is question 6 NTA2, a third answer. Hani Mishum Yisamim B'chayav Hechzira. Based on the seif of the Mishnah. What happened in the seif of the Mishnah? The father is actually alive, and therefore he marries off his daughter while she's a katana, which is an actual kedusha deraisa. And then she gets divorced, which is a true deraisa divorce. Now, as a katana, because the father no longer has a right to remarry her, but she gets remarried, that's only been a rabbanon. And therefore, if her husband dies at that moment, no longer is she able to do yibum. So, hachinami mistabra. It must be that that's the case. According to everyone, so hi my. Well, remember, what does this come to tell us? Pshita. What is he saying, this Divrei Kol? It's coming to tell you that really this is the whole reason behind why Rabbi Lezer's oyser in the first two cases is based on the Seifa, that people will start thinking that even in a situation where it's a Kedusha Deraisa, by being married by the father, and then she gets divorced Midaraisa, that there's still a din of being able to do Yibum when she gets remarried as a katana. But we know that's certainly not the case. And because of that potential issue, so therefore they say also when it comes to those other cases, we don't want to make this mistake, and therefore only chalitza can be done. They agree. The father is in the picture, and he's the one that marries her off. And it's Garsha, which is the Raisa, because it's a complete divorce. And it's only the Rabbanan getting remarried because she's still a katana. Says the Gemara, when do we say this is the case? Dafka. Shigir katana. Only when she got divorced as a katana, and v'hechzir katana, because therefore it's a kedusha to Rabbanan. However, avagir katana, but v'hechzir gedola. Now she decides to get remarried, but she's already a gedola. Now that kedushin is a kedusha deraisa, and therefore, according to that, certainly the din would be that in that case, if her husband dies, then yibum would take place. Inami or hechzir kashikatana. Let's say she got remarried still was a katana, but the gadla etzloi, but she grew up next to him. And Rashi says, ustam bi rishayna mishigadla kedushin hein. It must be that the first time that they had bia together, once she reaches the age of majority as a gedola, that already is not l'shem znus. That's not going to be znus. That's going to be considered kedushin. Umeis, and he dies. Ochletzes o misyavemas. In that situation, will even allow yibum. Yeshua Rebbe Lezer amru. Rebbe Lezer says chayletzes v'lo misyavemas. No. He says, still in that case, you should only do chalitza. One is the din when it comes to the co-wife, says Rashi, for the yavam, the case of the reisha in our Mishnah. We only said no because a gezerah from the seifa of a katana, so the tzara perhaps could do yibum. Of course, it's not going to be an issue. It says Rashi, that's a gezerah. So we're not going to make a gezerah. We're not going to be geyser the tzara because of this. That's a gezerah, that which we don't do. Amru, he b'tzarasa. It says beferish, not just her, but also the tzara is chayletzes. He b'tzarasa sachadaitach. You think both of them? You don't have to do chalitza for both of them. You never do chalitza on both. You only have to do chalitza one that pot is the other one. Elav. Ohi otsarasa chaletzas. But what do we still see? That you could do chalitza either one, which means that there is not an option for yibum when it comes to the tzara. So lav tichutzim kamarturetzet tartachi he chaletzas. You're right. She, the katana, you could do chalitza. However, tzarasa chaletzas and mishavdamas. The truth is, the tzara you could even do chalitza. Next Mishnah. Shnei achin nisuin l'shnei achoyos katanois is a famous Mishnah. Do you have two brothers that married two sisters, but both of them are katanais. So therefore, both of them, as we understand, is a kedusha d'Rabbanan. Umeis bala shel achas mehen. So now one of the brothers dies. So now what's the din when it comes to yibum? So normally that's an ereva. This is only an ereva d'Rabbanan. So the Mishnah says hilazu teitzi misham achas isha. Doesn't make any difference. She will still not have to do yibum because of her sister who's married to this other man. And therefore, because that, even though the whole marriage is only midrabanan, it's fine because both of their marriages are only midrabanan. So too when it comes to two women who are considered to be a cheresh, which are deaf mute, and therefore because of that also has the status of kedusha rabbanan in the event that one of their husbands dies, so that will pater the other one from doing yibum. Now this is the famous line of famous Mishnah. Gedola katana. What happens? You have two sisters. One's already a gedola, but one's a katana, and they both get married. Now, meis bala shel katana. If the kedusha rabbanan husband dies, so teitza katana misham achasisha. Then certainly she does not have. The katana does not do yibum. However, what about the other way around? Meis bala shel gedola. What happens if, let's say, the gedola, which is the kedusha deraisa, that husband dies? So Rebbe Lezer Oimer Melamden as a katana shetimoin boy. So there's the potential of miyun. The katana could do miyun and walk away from this marriage. What's the benefit of that? That will free up, making it afraid that she was not married, and therefore her sister will now be able to do yibum with her husband. So, and that's what we do. We teach her to do miyun, even though, as we're going to see, that's not something which she typically do. Rebbe Galil Oimer im mi'aina. If she wants to, we're not going to force her. But if she wants to do miyun, fine, let her do miyun. We wait, if she, let's say she doesn't, so this other sister whose husband died, we wait again until the katana gets older, and then all of a sudden this is going to be considered to be a true marriage midaraisa, once the sister becomes a gedola, and that will pater her from yibum. Rabbi Yoshua Omer, Eloi al ishtai ve'eloi al eshes achiv. Woe to the wife and to the brother's wife. Moitzias ishta beget ve'eshes achiv b'chalitza. That one of them is going to go out with a get, and the other one should go out with chalitza. So on this, the Rashi says over here, Moitzias ishta beget ve'ein mulam danai salamoyin. We actually, according to this shita, we're not going to teach them to do miyin. Kinamrina b'gemara yisrachik adam in a miyun. That we actually want to distance a person from being able to do miyin. Umeisav nami lo yosva tute. We're not going to make her just sit around. The ksavar yezika. There actually is some connection. Elatetzi beget Rather, we're going to force the other relationship that they have to give a get. But we're not going to make her do yibum mishum achas garusha because her sister got divorced. So that's what ends up happening. One of them, because of yesh zika, we're going to require her to get a get, and the other one, whose husband died, is going to have to receive chalitza. In fact, the Gemara, Mishari, is it really mutter to do miyan and to teach them? Doesn't seem like it's a good idea. Person should always attach themselves to do three things and distance from three. You should attach yourself to do chalitza, hava shalom, and to bring peace to the world, and to annul vows. And distance from three things, min habig dainais, from taking deposits, and also from being a guarantor. But what do we see from here? That a person is not supposed to teach miyun. So it says miyun de mitzvah shani. If we're talking about miyun and it's a mitzvah, that's different. Okay, gufa. Getting back, Tani bar kapoli olamid bakad b'shalish dabarim b'chalitza. A person should do chalitza. Ka'abishoil. Desani abishol oimer kainesis yevimtoi. A person gets married to his yevama, but it's only l'shem noi l'shem ishus l'shem davar acher. He did it for ulterior motives. He thinks she's beautiful and he wants to marry her. It's not because of his brother's wife, and he wants to prolong and to have his name. It's almost like the child's a mamzer. That a person should pursue peace as we continue to Kuf Testament days. The Rabbi Avo asi redifa redifa ksiv hacha b'kei shalom brad fehu. Person should pursue it. Uksiv hasem roidiv tzedakah v'chesim sevachayim tzedakah v'kavod. So therefore, again, it shows that a person should go close to pursuing peace and bringing harmony to others. A forest and dharm, better to annul vows. Kireb nasan. The sound of nasan aymer hanayder ki'ilu bana bama. A person makes vows is like you built an altar, says Rashi. B'shas iser habamais the chaytahu. And that's not a good thing. It's talking about a time where you're not allowed to build bamais. If you fill it, ki'ilu hikrav leha carbon. At least it's like you brought a carbon. Says Rashi, Shavar love shtei averos. You did two sins. El yelachetz al chacham. Rashi says, go to a chacham v'yatiranu. Remove it kadeshli hey ragel b'kach, so you don't become accustomed to this. V'yisrach m'shlosh davarim min hamiunin. Why don't we tell her to do miyan? Dilma gadla. Maybe she'll get older. Mischartaba, and maybe she'll have regret for having had done it. Min hapigdainais bivar masa. Namely, if it's in the same city. Rashi says, Li kabel pikadain ben iro. Do not accept a pikadain from someone in your city. Why? Debase ki baisa dami. Because he'll acts your house like it is his house. Says Rashi, Sharagul etzel of v'yitoil eshalo v'yachser v'yitvena. Basically, he's going to keep coming and disturbing you. Dami. Min he'ravain is referring to Ba'arve Shaltzion. Rashi says that's the name of a place. Shemanichin haloive v'taivsin ha'arev. They don't even bother the borrower; they go straight to the person who lent to the guarantor. Rashi says al shem noikritoin. Okay, weiter. So that's the problem. The Rav Yitzchak Ma'aksiv Ra Yerua Ki Arav Zar. What does that mean? Ra Achara. Bad after bad, tavo lemikable gerim will occur to those who accept gerim. Well, arbit shel tzion, and again, those people who are co-signers in this place. One who plants himself to devar halacha. So what does that mean? Mikable gerim, krevachel b'diyam revachel b'kashim gerim l'Yisrael kasapachas ba'or. That gerim are considered to be like a sapachas on the skin. It's like a tsaras. Arveit shulatziyon de'avdi shulav doitz toike atzma. Period. What does that mean? So Rashi says shulav doitz shoyif atzmo min halayva, that you should remove yourself from being a borrower, but toke atzmo al oriv, and then you end up going after the actual co-signer first. Fine. So therefore, that will be an issue to you. Rashi says Ra yarua, ra achara, bad after bad, ki arav zar, hama arav zarim gerim b'Yisrael v'nichnas be'eravin. Okay. And then Rashi says, what is it? Taikei atzmo devar halacha, sha'imer hareini shayni, you say, I know how to learn, the enu mekayim, the kabel schar limud. Says the Gemara, it says as follows, Taikei atzmo devar halacha, the sign, Rabbi Yossi, Aimer, kol Aimer, ein lo Torah, ein lo Torah pshita. It's referring to anyone who says, I didn't have Torah. Ella kol Aimer, ein lo ella Torah, ein lo ella Torah, ein lo ella Torah. I do not have except for Torah. So hanami pshita, ella diafilu Torah ein lo. That even Torah I don't have. So my time is Amar Papa, Amar Kra, lo maratem biasisem. Kol sheyeshnu biasiya yishnu b'lamida. Anyone who is engaged in doing should be engaged also in the process of learning and teaching. Kol she'enu biasiya enu b'limda. However, anyone who doesn't do it should not be involved in teaching. So basically it's saying that if you're not medakdek in doing the mitzvos, then you shouldn't be the one that's actually engaged in the educational process as well. Says Rashi Shaimer, Hareini Shaina, I'm going to okay, that's one shot. Vaiboy saying Oilam Kidam Riso Me'akara. Kol Aimer Ein Lo Ela Torah, Ein Lo Ela Torah, Lotzricha de Kamigamar Lacharini, he taught others, the Azle V'Avde, and they do mitzvos. Madatem Isle Agro Lididei, you would think maybe you would get sechar for the mitzvos they did, Kamash Malon. V'iboy saying Batoke Atzmo Devar Halacha B'Daine. It's referring to judges. That they have a din and they learn halacha. Milsa, and they compare one matter to the next. The Islay Rabba Ozl Mashal, and they have a teacher. They do not ask their teacher. A person, when they're judging, they should envision as though they actually have like a sword between their thighs. They should realize the severity and seriousness of being a dayan. This is referring to the Sanhedrin. They're afraid at night. It's referring to Gehenim, which is comparable to the nighttime. If you want to do me, do me. So, my time, why does he say this? It's mishum de ksaver kedushi katana mitla talu. Is it that when it comes to the kedushi katana, it's hanging in the balance? This kedushin, we don't know what its status is going to be because she goes to mian the chi gadol, and therefore once she grows up, gadli bahada, the marriage comes along as well. Afgad the loy boil. Does that mean even if they ever had bia after she grew up? That when you're Mekadesh the Achos Yevama, Nifter Yevama, B'holchala. So Ibal in Ilo Boilo. To create a Kedusha Deraisa, so you need Bia to remove the Zika, or the question is, it could be done even without Bia. That's the question. That once you're Mekadesh the sister of the Yevama, it patters the Yevama, the whole and she goes. You boil in, you boil low. It's all totally, Bia has to have taken place as well. Amrav Shesha Samina, ki noim b'shachav Rabbi Melo Hashmais. He must have been sleeping, the Sanya. The Mekadesh is a katan, the Kedusha Tuluyin. It says Beferish, the Kedusha is Tuluyin, my Tuluyin, Lav, ki Gadu, Gadu B'Hadav, V'Yafagad lo boil. As we said before, L'chayr, it means even if she didn't have Bia. So Amr Lei, Ravin Beredo Av Nachman, Hamilsa the Katana, this whole matter, as we're referring to a katana, mitla talia v'kaima, she's in doubt. In other words, she's not sure. He could give me a get, or I could do mian. But until Bia, being a gedola, maybe is not enough. And that's what the mitla talia, she doesn't know what's going to be. He doesn't know what's going to be. E boil in, ilo boil low. Will he perform Bia with me or not? The amra hu adif minei v'ana adifne minei. That you could say that he is more than me and I'm more than him. Now, b'shas as a katana, it's shaykh that she could always just do mian. However, when she grows up, it's also shaykh that she could receive a get, and he could decide not to perform bia. And until that takes place, then that's not considered to be a kedusha deraisa. Okay, we're going to stop here. Let's see a couple questions. Question 6. Hamagar says isha v'achzira. So as I said, if you divorce a woman, your wife, and then then you remarry her, so muteris l'yavim. So it makes sense. You can do yibum because she's your wife. Rabbi Lezer oiser. So my term Rabbi Lezer oiser. If you hold that for sure that misa is mapelas, if you hold that for sure that the misa is what causes her to yibum l'chayr, then she should be able to do so. So v'loy nisun rishonim. So he said either because one shot is because it's possible everyone knows that she got divorced, not everyone knows that she got remarried, and therefore that's going to cause a problem. Or the whole basis is based on the seifa where the father did the kedushin, which is a kedusha deraisa. Question 7. Al eza oifen Rabbi Yeshua oilo al ishtoi oilo al eshes achav madua. So it's talking about a situation where you have achas gadol achas katan, an older and a younger sisters, and they got married, and then the older sister's husband died. So then the question is, what do we do? We don't have the katana do we have the katana do miyun? So if she does, she could not do miyun. But what we'll do is we'll require the husband to give a get, and then that man will also have to end up doing chalitza. Why? It's because according to this, as we saw in Rashi, she has to get a get because he holds the zika. And the Eishes Achiv gets chalitza, the Achas Gerushasahi. Okay, question 8. Ra Yarua ki Arav Zar. Ma hizar posik zeh shesayfer ra hara. What does it mean bad after bad? What's considered to be ra hara? So one is Hama'arv Zarim Gerim Yisrael, a person who brings Gerim into Yisrael, which is like a sapachas, or Nichnas Me'iravan Shel Tzion, a person who's engaged as a co-signer in this location where they do not first go to the borrower, but they go directly to you, and therefore that's going to cause a lot of problems for you. TA2, Yisayim b'chayav, which is the seif of the Mishnah, She'asiya aviyah b'katnusim v'nisgarsha, She'achzira ba'ala umes, and then her husband dies, and then he died. So her husband dies. Ma din libam kishemes b'katnusa. So we saw in the Mishnah that if she was a katana, everyone holds it's also for her to do yibum, and she's going to be also potter from chalitza. However, if let's say she was a gedola already, so it's all totally again if she became a gedola, and the question is, did she also have to abiyah? But at least we see that once she's a gedola, maybe that creates a kedusha deraisa, and therefore, when her husband subsequently dies, then she would be able to do yibum. So that part of that is actually the seifa of our Mishnah. This was actually TB2, which talks about again katana shesiyua aviyah and nisgarshik is b'yasam b'chayav and v'chazira dibri hakoil asel yavam, but it's davening b'katnusa. However, as a gedolah, then it's a machlokas. Question TB3. Madua yisrachik adamin hamiyun. Why should you distance yourself from miyun? So we saw in Amud Beis because she may have charata. And umaduim came sabra belezim and mishnah shalwana sakatanu shetimoyin is because it's a mitzvah in this situation, dafka, where again her older sister was a kedusha deraisa, and therefore maybe it's better for her, at least in this situation, for her to do miyun. TA2. Hamagar says Isha v'echzira Rabbi Lezer Oyser Yavam Matam Shel Rabbi Lezer. So again, we saw the two of the answers, and the third explanation is because he has a suffix whether or not he holds it's tali b'misa mapalas or it's by nisuna rishonim. So if you hold that it's misa, then taka, you're right, you should have to do yibum. However, if it's tali on the nisuna rishonim, so she got divorced, so therefore maybe for that reason she shouldn't have to do anything, and therefore we do this middle ground of chalitza in order to be able to alleviate these two potential issues in a situation of a suffix. Adkan.